Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is part 2 of the PiKVM build video. We're going to go through the software portion of things, and I'm going to highlight some issues that I ran into. Let me caveat that by saying that the installation actually went very smoothly, and if I just read a little bit more carefully, then there would have been 0 hiccups. Once I built the device into its case, like shown in the first video, I simply ran through this guide once again, just to check things out. Over here in the version of your PiKVM, it'll list what software you would need and how you would go through the build. So I downloaded the image that they have available. Be prepared that the download is going to be a little slow. It looks like this is hosted by the author, and at the time of download I had a little bit of a delay getting it. Wasn't a major issue. It eventually came down and I was able to use it. I could even verify the SHA-1 and there was no issues. It does go on to mention that the OLED is quite sensitive, or quite fragile I should say, so be careful with it. On the screen you'll see which connections are possible to your PiKVM. You'll see the ATX front panel connector, the USB emulation, which is going to go into the target device so that you can control it via HID, so keyboard, mouse, that kind of thing. The HDMI input, which is going to come from your target device as well, where its screen output is going to go. It goes on to detail a couple more things, and then it hits this section where it gets to step 5, 6, 7, and I feel that this may need to be reordered, because you will need to do, I needed to do step 5 to get the OLED to work. I did not have to do step 6 because I'm using Celsius. I didn't want to use Fahrenheit. And then I did in fact change the passwords. But the password section is where the details comes in on how to do 5 and 6. Because it says that the PiKVM comes with 2 ways to administer it. One, you can SSH into it, or you can use the web front end. And you probably never even have to SSH into it because the front end does have a terminal built in. I will demonstrate. And it will detail what you need to do. So first of all, there is switching the PiKVM into read-write mode, setting your password, setting the admin password for the UI, and putting it back into read-only mode. This seems to be the modus operandi. Put it into read-write mode, do an operation. Once you complete, put it back into read-only mode. Okay. And so once you've gotten used to this pattern, step 5 and 6 will make sense, because you'll see here read-write mode, enable the OLED, and enable the fan control. Without this, the fan runs at maximum RPM, which is kind of annoying, but once this is enabled, it will only spin up the fan when the device gets warm. So that's great. And again, read-write, then read only when you're done. I did not have to change this, so I cannot vouch for how well this worked, but I'll have to assume that it does. And then basically you're ready to try it out. I did not have to venture into this further because I didn't want to do audio forwarding and I didn't want to set up a VPN access. So I'm not using my PiKVM outside of my network. Right, let's take a look at our PiKVM in the browser. Right, when you connect your PiKVM the first time, you'll be presented with a security warning. The reason for this is the PiKVM uses a self-signed certificate. And you can see it actually tells you Mozilla PKIX self-signed certificate. It's fine to accept the certificate. Then you'll be presented with a login screen, which is using the same credentials that you set up in the admin section when you were setting your root password and your admin logins. I'll use my new password, and then I'm presented with the functions that I can perform with my PiKVM. You'll notice that there's some instructions down here. These instructions are for those people that really need to have their shortcuts, i.e. Control-Alt-Delete or Control-W or something along those lines. I will show you in the UI there are menu items to send these key combinations, so you don't have to do this, but it is kind of convenient if you do want to kick it into full screen. So there is details of how to do it on the various OSs. Then you can use the KVM functionality, which we'll get to, and the terminal. So in the terminal here, you can do all the administrative tasks that they list in the guide. And you'll notice here it says the file system of your PiKVM is mounted read-only by default. Use read-write to remount it read-write so that you can do modifications. It's actually quite useful if it's read-only like this. Not so much from a security perspective, but when you switch it back into read-only mode, the kernel flushes all the changes out to disk. So if you turn it off without cleanly shutting it down, you should have no file system corruption. Anyway, so you use the su command or su command, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And you will use the password again that you set up in that step of the guide, and you will become root. Once you're root, you can go into read-write mode, and you can perform your operations and return back to read-only mode with RO. And that is as difficult as it gets with that. You can log out of here, and what it will do is it'll just reconnect. Okay. The easiest way that I found to get out of it is just to go back to this page again. Right, we're at the workbench, and I will now be plugging in the PiKVM. I've got my network plugged in at the back, this side, bottom socket. I'll just lift it so you can see. Then I have the USB-C cable to USB-A, male to male, and I've got the HDMI connector plugged in. So we're not going to use that just yet, but I thought I'd just mention what the cables are that's poking out. I will now be applying power. I will be putting that into the power socket. And now that I've run that command for the OLED should power up as soon as the device is ready to initialize it. Right, the activity light is flashing, and there we go. It says hello. Gives you the temperature plus uptime, and there it says it's found an IP address, so it prints out the IP address that it got on the network. And that's the boot up process pretty much complete. It will cycle through these screens. I have connected a target device to my PiKVM, and we will now see what it does when we power it on. I'm going to maximize this so it's in full screen so we can enjoy this properly. And of course I've connected another Raspberry Pi. And there is our device. It's powered up and running, and I can click through the UI. That is fantastic. Very nice. All right, so let me show you some interesting things. Press escape to go back to smaller. If you needed to send a Control-Alt-Delete, there is the shortcuts buttons over here. So if I needed to send a Control-Alt-Delete, I would just send it that way, and the target device would receive it. There is also some stuff here about copying and pasting, which is very, very convenient. There are some macros. I haven't looked into that, but it seems like you can record some macros. You can upload an image to your PiKVM. You can expose it as a USB flash stick or a memory or a CD-ROM on the device. So let's say you wanted to do an installation. You could just upload the image to your PiKVM and basically do that straight away. This is for the ATX front connector. Obviously, I haven't got mine connected, so pressing the reset button would do nothing. This seems to be just status indication, and also tweaking some things about the stream. So currently we're running it with H.264 WebRTC, and it's got these default settings, which seem to be working quite fine. You also got a keyboard if you needed to press specific buttons. So you can see if I type in on the keyboard, it does appear on the device itself. What else is there? And if you find for some other reason that the USB pass-through isn't working, just reset the HID device. But other than that, it's brilliant.